I would like to make $1 million
$1 million.
in 2024.
Get your questions answered by Deb and Jen.
Deb and Jen are at it again.
Okay, so welcome to the Deb and Jen Show. I'm Coach Deb.
And I'm Coach Jen.
And you may not realize it, but next week is 2024. Oh my gosh, how does the time fly by? So we thought today would be a great time to talk about how do you really plan for the year that you want to have.
Just let it happen.
We meet so many people who just randomly throw out a number.
$1 million.
And say, yep, I want to make 150K or I want to make 250K, but they have no real plan to get there.
I didn't have a plan.
So I came up with this phrase a while back. It's kind of an offset of the unexamined life is not worth living, which is the unexamined business is not worth doing. And what does that mean? You really got to look at your metrics. You really got to look at how are you converting? How many people do you talk to get one sale? How many people do you need to get into a discovery call to get one sale? How many people do you need to get on a webinar in order to have 1 or 3 or 5 sales? If you don't know, you're doing yourself a disservice.
You never did the math?
So today we thought we'd kind of walk you through how to create a plan that will ensure that you get the actual income results that you want. So Jen, you're going to lead us off on this, yeah? And I know you've done this many times, and it's really important to have a plan, to have some sense of how you're doing with your conversions and with talking to people, how you're doing with your copy and so forth. Otherwise, it's just a random flag flying in the wind, and you've got your fingers crossed, hoping you're going to make money. And like we like to say, hope is not a strategy.
Absolutely.
Take us away.
These are my rose-colored glasses. You'll probably see them again at Valentine's Day, but these are the rose-colored glasses that most entrepreneurs wear. And it's good to have a positive attitude, but when you're growing a business, not a hobby, very important differentiation. Is it a hobby or is it a business? If you're actually growing a business and you're committed to growing a business, then yes, you need to have a positive rose-colored attitude, but you also need to have a plan.
How will we get there?
And so as Deb and I were debriefing on this, and as she mentioned, there are foundational things that every business owner does. And I want to start out by just encouraging you to make the commitment to running a business and not having a hobby, which often can turn into an expensive hobby if you are out there investing your time, your energy, your money into figuring out how to hopefully have a business and not just an expensive hobby. So when we're talking about metrics, one of the biggest things that I see business owners do is they sit with it, and they randomly pick a number and say, I would like to make $1 million. Pick a number. I'd like to make $500,000 in 2024.
$1.8 million.
And then they think, okay, if I just focus on $500,000, if I just focus on $500,000, and that's my intention, and I focus hard enough, then I'm going to hit it. The problem with that is that when something isn't defined, it's not clear, it's not measured, your brain doesn't have any way to take clear, decisive, predictable, consistent action. So here's the thing. I don't know how many of you are thinking, I don't like to deal with metrics. I don't want to be tied down. I'm an entrepreneur. I want autonomy to live as I want and go where I want.
Spontaneous. I'm spontaneous.
I'm a spontaneous person.
Right. And
You're going to ruin my creative streak.
Don't tie me down. I'm an entrepreneur.
Kind of harsh in my vibe.
So systems and the truth and even a little bit, let's baby step into it.
Baby steps, Mitchell, baby steps.
Even a little bit of foundation where you're actually setting goals, metrics, and you can act on them is the secret to getting freedom. So if you're an entrepreneur that wants freedom, you want to go out, you want to give a talk, you want to go out and run your social media marketing, you want to serve your clients, there's no way you can do it. I'm just going to draw a line in the sand. There's no way you can do that without having metrics that you measure and that you care about and you can take action towards. So let's take the example of $500,000 a year. Okay, let's say in 2024, you want to bring in $500,000. One of my first questions for you would be, okay, great. What are you selling? How much does it cost? And how many people do you have to enroll to be able to hit that number? And it starts there. There's many metrics, but that's where it starts. So I'm dumbfounded how many entrepreneurs say they want to make $500,000 and they're like, yeah, well, I'm selling this thing. I think I'm going to sell it for like 197. So how do you do that? I mean, how many hundred, who's the mathematician here? Is it me or you? Maybe.
Alexa, what's 500,000 divided by 197?
500,000 divided by 197 is approximately 2,538.071.
So you'd have to make 2,538 sales. 2,538 sales. Now, if you're really good at conversions and you convert at 10%, that means you'd have to talk to 10 times as many people.
So you might have a thing you want to sell for 97, 197, $297. But do you have the money to be able to market to get the volume you need to hit the number? So I'm not saying that you can't sell something for $197. I'm just saying that if you want to make $500,000, well, you need to do the math. And if the math doesn't work, you can't rose color your glasses your way through the fact that the math doesn't work. So where do you start? How do you solve it?
Cross your fingers and hope. No, it's not going to work.
Right. Yeah.
So what's the remedy, Jen?
Well, the remedy is you may have additional on this, but I will tell you the first thing for me when I'm coaching my clients is to say, great, let's lay it out and have a look at your offer. My number one recommendation is that you have a higher ticket offer. I mean, this is just a basic number. There's still other numbers, but if you're going to sell something and you want to hit $500,000, you hear it. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. Selling something for $5,000 is so much easier than trying to sell something for $197. People that are willing to invest $5,000, $7,500, even $3,500, like a bigger number, people that are willing to make that investment are serious.
I'm serious here.
They're serious about their business, etc. So it is, usually you hear it's just as easy. I'm going to tell you it's easier to sell something that's $5,000 than to sell something that's $197.
Let's pause there and anchor that point, because I think people really get kind of all mixed up when it comes to what price should I charge. And your statement, it's easier to sell a higher ticket offer. We're not talking 10K, 20K, 30K. We're talking like 2,500 to 5,000. It's easier because you're going to attract the people who are committed versus tire kickers, right? At 97, 197, people are like, I'm kind of experimenting. They may stay with you. They may leave. They may ask for their money back. These are the people that you're dragging along. Whereas at a higher price, people are accustomed to paying for transformation, for strategies, for frameworks. They're accustomed to paying more. So the sale is easier because there's less resistance from the get-go, right? They're like more invested in their own growth and their journey, and they're willing to pay for it. So keep going. Doing great.
Absolutely. And the other thing also, when you're looking at a higher ticket item, whether it's, 2K, 3K, 5K, not only is it easier to sell because those people are serious about their business, on top of that, what we teach our clients is to say, great, you know what, now that Miss or Mr. Client, you purchased this $3,000 program from me and you've gotten an outcome, it's easier to get those people into the next program and the next program and the next program, as long as you're providing good content and a quality outcome. And they show up and they do the work, right? If it was $97 and they're like, oh gosh, but my family invited me to this like Italian place tonight, I can't possibly show up for your phone call or for your training. But if they invested $2,000 to $3,000 to $5,000, they're going to be like, family, let's go to dinner tomorrow night. And they're going to skip it and make sure that they're present and show up and do the work. So getting back to metrics, if you want to hit $500,000 as an example in 2024, first point, consider high ticket, something that is above, like it's 2K or higher. I would recommend it.
Let's call it, what are you offering and for how much? That's your first consideration.
Yes. So what are you offering and how much? The second thing that I look at is we begin to go into what Deb mentioned earlier, was how many people do you need to get in front of and what's your closing rate? Like do you even know your number? If I get in front of 1,000 people, how many of those people, let's say it's on social media, 1,000 people on social media, how many of those people are going to either book a call or click the link? And then how many of those people are actually going to, what I say, whip out credit card and say, yes, I want that and I'm in.
I'm going to call that number 3 because I want to insert a number 2 if I could.
Okay.
And which is, it's along the lines of what you're saying. But number 2 would be, where and how are you going to market your offer? Okay. So there's a multitude of places all over social media. You could have a YouTube channel. You can be doing live on Instagram or Facebook or even LinkedIn, or you can be speaking at your local groups. You can be doing email marketing. You can start your own meetup group. There's all kinds of things you can do. We recommend that the average entrepreneur, we're talking about someone who's been in business 0 to 5 years, roughly, more or less. There's always outliers. You should have around 3 main marketing strategies. Maybe you're going to do a webinar. Maybe you're going to have a free masterclass or a town hall, or go live on social with some regularity. But you need to map out, where are you going to present your offer and how are you going to get people there? So if you're holding a webinar, how are you going to drive traffic to the webinar? I was just talking to a colleague who scheduled a webinar. 20 people signed up, 18 of whom were new, 2 she knew. The 18 who were new, not a single one showed up to the webinar. 2 people she knew, both showed up, 1 sale. Okay. So you can say, wow, that's a 50% conversion. Is it? Because the 18 didn't show up. So it's really more like a 5% conversion. These are important numbers to know. So over the course of a year, if you're going for 500,000, well, let's say you're just going for 150,000. You need to know how many of these events of your 3 marketing strategies you need to do in order to make it. This dovetails with number 3, Jen, which you started already, which is
look at your conversion rates, right? Like, so
it's going to differ on every single one, right? It's going to be different on social, different on a live webinar, way different in front of a live audience, like in-person audience. But you go ahead.
Right. Absolutely. No. And that's why we love speaking. And that's a big part of what we teach and what we've taught for thousands of clients in the past, because speaking helps you to, what I always say, skip to the front of the line, because it creates that know, like, trust. It creates that, just the humanity and the rapport. But yes, but so as an example, speaking or something that's really intimate, where they can see you, hear you, feel you, ask you questions, those generally have a higher conversion rate than if they just see an ad somewhere on social media. That doesn't mean that a social media ad is bad or wrong, or you shouldn't choose it. Just know that when you're planning your strategy for the next coming year, that you take that into consideration. So someone who's new at sales or new at conversions, maybe having an enrollment conversation, right? Like, hey, we're going to hop on a call and talk about your problem. And we can always do another show on the full enrollment conversation. But when you're getting on the phone with someone to offer them something that maybe $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, your conversion rate, of course, you can imagine, will be higher if you have done something like that before, or if you have a script, or if you have a strategy for how to run that call. If you're brand spanking new, man, I think if you get 10%, like, that's probably pretty generous, depending on the ticket, the price of what you're offering. So considering what Deb said, the mode of marketing, how connected are you to that person, and then what's your conversion rate? And when you track that number, now, can you imagine you've got something predictable where you can say, you know what, I know every time I do a live presentation, here's my conversion rate. Like, 20% of that room will book a phone call, and 50% of those people will purchase from me. Now you can plan versus hope and guess. Yeah.
So let's say they don't, they're not really sure of their conversion rate. How do you figure it out?
Well, I mean, I would initially,
what would they do, Jen?
Yeah. So if you're initially planning, like, let's say you have no idea right now.
Let's assume they were, let me guide you in my direction. Let's say they were in business in 2023. What might they do looking backwards to maybe arrive at some conversion rate?
Yeah. Yeah. You could actually look back at 2023. This is going to be, it's going to blow your mind. You could look back at 2023 and look at your revenue. You could look at the events you did. You could actually just hack it, like unpack it as if it was someone else. Don't get emotional. Don't get emotional. And you could go back and say, great, okay, I did one live webinar. I had 20 people that registered. I had 2 that showed up, and I had 1 that purchased. So you could begin, and here was the amount of money I received for the effort, for maybe the marketing I did, the presentation I did. You can actually just go back and begin to look at your metrics in arrears. I would look at it just for the last 12 months. You could go back farther, but I think the last 12 months, if you haven't tracked these numbers, keep it small and just look at the last 12 months. Anything else you have them do, Deb?
Well, yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And just to add a little bit, maybe, if you had clients last year, presumably you did, where'd they come from?
Mm-hmm.
And what was your most successful marketing strategy? Like Jen's saying, like maybe social media isn't working as well as live in front of a room, like in person. We say live because people are live on Zoom. So in front of a room. Now you may say, well, I should just ditch social media and email then because they're not working as well. No, they are an adjunct to what you're doing. Hey, everyone, just a heads up. I just gave a great Facebook Live on XYZ. I'd love for you to pop over and have a look. And then you put the link there. Make it easy for them to go over and have a look. Tell them why they should go over and have a look. So you don't ditch the things that aren't working or have as high a conversion. You look at them through a different lens, which is how does it add to the thing that's really working well for me? So maybe you hold a follow-up workshop to your live event that's free or low cost to get people who are really wowed by your presentation to come in for a little bit deeper dive. And then you can sell them on something else from there. Always know, where are my people coming from? How, is it a referral? Then maybe referral marketing is a good strategy for you. And you want to set up strategies for doing that. We can't get into all the details of these today. The main point of today's call was take a little time to know your metrics.
Do the math.
Where are your people coming from? How are they paying me? Like they saw me live, or somebody referred them, or they really fell in love with a Facebook Live that I did and wanted to learn more. And then you had a really dynamic discovery call where they were sold on the spot. All kinds of things can happen, but you should know where and how they're happening. Why? It's really simple. So you can do more of it. I mean, if you're looking for a partner and you go to like 10 different bars, but there's this one bar that seems to always have the best guys or girls, you think, well, should I go to all 10 still? Or should I just like concentrate my efforts on that one bar? Let's think for a second. Yeah, you'd go to the bar where the best guys and gals are, right?
It is the best in town.
Same thing with marketing. Where are you catching the most fish? Where are you having the most success? You got to know this. You can't just wing it, people.
Well, I was winging it.
You don't want to just wing it and quote, hope for the best. So metrics. Kind of offer and how much you're charging. What marketing strategies you're using, number 2. And what are your conversion rates for those different strategies? How are they working together and supporting one another? And you add up those numbers and you think, oh, I only got to 60,000. That's a long way from 500,000. We're not going to lie. It takes a bit to reach 500,000. You need to have a pretty good mailing list, a pretty good presence on social media, and a fair amount of expertise, and maybe 3 offers, to hit 500,000. We know some big players in the online world and what they're pulling in and the effort it takes to pull people. And we're not going to lie. We'll tell you the truth. It's harder now than it was just when COVID began or just after COVID began. It's harder now. Why? Because people are a little bit more considered about where they're going to spend their money. And they want to make sure they're making a good investment. So what does this mean for you as the business owner creating and presenting an offer? It has to be really compelling. And you have to have benefits and outcomes that they want. They need to be visceral. They need to be captivating. They need to be real. And you need to have testimonials and case studies of people who've done it before with you. And it's got to be like a no-brainer decision. That's just kind of a little add-on here for making the sale. But we're really today talking about the numbers and putting some effort into knowing what they are. Go ahead, Jim.
Absolutely. And, there's 2 things I would say for me wrapping up is Number one, when you know your numbers, then I'm going to encourage you to go deep. We always say go deep, like figure it out, commit to those couple of ways that you've decided to market. When you look back and you say, you know what, every time I do a Facebook Live or every time I go and I speak, I now know what's reasonably predictable. I know that if I get 50 people in a room, I'm probably going to end up with 5 or 10 paid clients. So you commit to that form of marketing, and then I want you to go deep with it. And what I mean by that is get better and better and better. Get infinitely curious about how to improve those numbers. So if you ever have a bad presentation, a bad talk, something doesn't go the way that you expect it to go, it doesn't match what your metrics show. Like you go and do a live talk and one person signs up. I want you to get infinitely curious about how you can be better and better and better at each of the 3 marketing channels you choose. And when you make that commitment and you figure out how to master those modes of marketing, my second point is, can you imagine how exciting it can become to build your business when you know if you do these certain things, like you can predict the amount of money, the amount of clients that you're going to have within a range. So now it's not just January 1st, January 2nd, you're like, oh, I'm going to focus on 500,000. Like you actually have a plan that has some proof. And as an entrepreneur, that's where your freedom comes in. You can sit back, you can relax, and you can say, I got this. And that's freedom for an entrepreneur. You are muted.
Oh, well said. And just to dovetail on something you mentioned, which if your conversions aren't happening, like let's say you give a webinar and you don't convert anyone, you don't like, oh, that's it for webinars, I might as well move on to something else. Like Jen said, you drill down and find out why it wasn't working. Maybe your call to action fell flat. Maybe you weren't benefit driven enough because people buy on benefits. So there are all kinds of ways to unpack and look at why something's not working. You don't just toss it out and go on to the next thing.
Okay, that's it. I'm going home.
You become a student. If you love speaking, but your speaking's not converting, well, let's have a look at your speaking. Why isn't it converting? There's any number of reasons why it's not converting. It could be because your earrings are dangling and it's distracting the audience. They can't hear what you're saying.
Oh, those are huge.
Yes, that does happen, actually. Sometimes guys jingle the change in their pockets and it can become very distracting. I just heard the story of a world-class speaker who was before a live audience. It was a woman and her dress was too tight and her belly popped out.
I nearly lost an eye this afternoon.
And the upper area, let's just say the headlights were on. And people were so distracted that when the talk was over, they said, I couldn't focus on anything she was saying. Could you?
I've been a little distracted.
So I give you that example only because there's a number of reasons why things might not be working. And you can always ask us questions on any of our shows about that. But before you ditch the baby with the bathwater, realize that there's always something to be learned to improve. Everything to add to that, Jen?
There's just, I love it. It's very true. It's like this forest for the trees is what it makes me think of. Like when you're getting up to speak, just using this example, like when you're getting up to speak, there's so many small things that can completely blow it up. And I've seen speakers, to your point, that have dangly earrings that hit the mic. It just every once in a while it just goes tick, tick.
What is that noise?
And the audience doesn't feel connected. They don't get engaged. They're not leaning in like, how do I get this? I've seen female speakers that have bracelets, just a little ching, ching, ching.
Clang, clang, clang with the trolley.
Every time that they're speaking. But that's just one area. But to Deb's point, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like get curious. How can I master this skill? Especially if it's a skill that's like right up your alley. If it's a skill that you're like, I would speak if I knew what to say and how to say it to move people to action. If that's a yes for you, then learn how to master it. Don't run from it. Don't hide from it. Don't cross your fingers and hope that you just get good someday, that you're going to be in a flow state. And all of a sudden the droves are going to come rushing, to your website or to the back table. Learn it, but you have to commit. And that goes for any form of marketing. Mhm.
All right. So that's about all we can cover today when it comes to metrics. But I hope we made the point that knowing what your metrics are is critical, and that hope is not a strategy.
Hope is our four-letter word.
So it's knowing your offer and how much you're going to charge is number one. Number two, what are your three primary marketing channels? And always with an eye towards how can you improve them. And that was number two. Number three, what are your conversion rates in each of those? In other words, for every 10 or 20 people that show up, how many buy? It's really important to know that. All those things can be improved over time. All right. So it's been great going over this with you. We hope it's given you something to think about as you move forward to plan 2024 to be your best year yet.
Yep, absolutely. And we look forward to seeing you in 2024. We really want you to hit your goals. So if you have questions for us or anything we can offer you or help you with, we're here to serve you and help you to get your message out into the world. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, and we will see you very soon.
Okay, everyone. Bye for now.